All right, so for today's training, I'm going to expand upon what we've been talking about for the last 2 weeks. I'm going to expand upon the Encounter Heaven component. Actually, let me share with you really quickly. I didn't have it open in, so just give me a second to find it, but let's see here. We'll do it this way. Sorry, guys, I should have had this prepared in advance. Let me open another one. There we go. There we go. All right. If you'll remember from last week, I talked about the Encounter Heaven, the starting point at the top. So I'm going to really kind of hone in on that aspect of how and why Encounter Heaven is so important and critical for Hesed International, for building Hesed International. So we're going to kind of go into more detail on that today. So the short of it is, the most important thing, the solution to everything, is to be able to dwell from heaven, to dwell in heaven and live from heaven to earth. It's the answer to everything. And this is even my personal testimony. It's a testimony to all those that are right now taking the Encounter Heaven Masterclass, and what God is revealing through that, those of us in that masterclass is way beyond what I expected, way beyond what I anticipated. I can't even tell you how God is speaking and answering, and people are actually learning how they're actually able to go to heaven now. They're actually able to visit heaven, and are actually starting now to live from heaven. So we have the proof that it works. Before I go any farther, guys, I just need to plug in my laptop. Just give me 1 second here. All right. There we go. Okay, so here we go. Before we were all born, we all dwelled in heaven. We all were citizens of heaven, right? We were in God's imagination. He created us in heaven. He says, I knit you together, right? And I knew you before you were born. And so then we were born for 2 reasons. We came to earth for 2 reasons. And they both, well, the first reason is to find Jesus and make a decision for him one way or another, for or against. And the second reason is to help others discover Jesus and make a decision for him one way or the other, right? And that's the only reason we're here, right? Everything else God provides, right? And you know, those are the only 2 reasons earth exists, right? So think back before we came to earth, you know, God discovered that some of the angels, right, 1/3 of the angels rebelled against God. And so it seems to me there was a realization that people have to have choice, right? Do they want to be in heaven, and submit to God or not. And that way, this is how we all have choice. So that way, those who do end up making a choice for God through Jesus, we know that when we move on to eternity, our eternal lives that will go forever, when we go back to our dwelling place, our home, then we know the ones that are living there with us, right, are completely committed to God's kingdom, right? And so that's kind of a nice feeling, right, that it's going to be this amazing place, and we won't have to worry about the stuff we have to deal with here. So the bottom line with all that is, we are from heaven, right? We were created in heaven. That is our home. The Bible says we are sojourners here. We are journeying here. We're guests here. We're here temporarily. The Bible says your life is but a breath or vapor, a fleeting second, right? So the problem is we've all been living in the world, and no one has explained this to us. There's been no revelation of our life in heaven. And even still, even though we're living here, right, for those two reasons, our spiritual being, right, our spirit dwells in heaven, because that's where it belongs. That's its home, right? Our bodies are for earth, our spirits still dwell in heaven. But we've been on earth so long that we've more than we even realize, and I think we're still realizing it. I don't think anybody on earth really fully realizes citizenship in heaven yet. And so we've become so immersed in the world, some more than others. Now there's an awakening happening in the world right now. And I'm not talking about the revival in Uganda and Asbury in the United States and in several countries in the world now. Revival is breaking out. And sure, I'm not, that is obviously very good news. But what I'm talking about is, we really don't realize how immersed in the world we are. And so the solution then is, the antidote to that is dwelling from heaven. And that means actually going to heaven. And obviously I've shared with you before, I've been to heaven many times, and there are many different realms in heaven. I do go to the same place sometimes, but often I go to a new place every time. And lots of people go to heaven. There are lots of people. Kat Kerr is one of them. There are many people that go to heaven regularly. And increasingly, people are being taught how to go to heaven so that we can learn to dwell from heaven. Our spirit being, some people call it the spirit man, the spiritual aspect of who we are, comes alive when we go to heaven, because we're home again. We're home, right? And it's like, oh, thank you. It's like when you've been away for a long time and you come back and you go, oh, it's so nice to be in my home bed. It's so nice to be home, right? Even if you go to work all day and you come home, oh, it's so nice to be home. Our spirits come alive when we go to heaven, and it goes, oh, here we are. This is my true home. And then when as we're spending our time here on earth as sojourners, right, increasingly we live from heaven, and we actually bring heaven to earth, right? In the Lord's Prayer, it says, on earth as it is in heaven. This is how that happens, right? We have to go and spend time there so that we can bring it to earth. All right. It's the answer to everything. It is the answer to relationship problems. It's the answer to financial problems. It's the answer to being confused. What do I do next? I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Who am I? Right? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I doing here? It's all those answers come when we go and spend time in heaven. And that's my own personal testimony. Like, seriously, even doing the Encounter Heaven masterclass was completely directed by God. I actually thought it was a distraction from Hesed International and building sustainable villages. But as I spent more time in heaven, God said, no, I want you to show more people how to go to heaven. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do it, God, but I don't see how it fits in with Hesed. Well, and as I said, over the last 2 weeks, now I see why. When we learn our citizenship, this is a key. This is a key. When we learn our citizenship in heaven, and then we live that out on earth, one, it releases blessing like you would not believe. Like things just start happening. Good things start happening in your life. The blessing comes. Okay, and I'm going to go into detail on that in a minute. And two, yeah, problems are solved. Things that you've been blocked in your life just that gets solved, right? And three, it's what brings heaven to earth, right? So let's go into that a little bit. Make a note to come back to the blessing part. So citizenship in heaven, what does that look like? All right. Here's what I've seen and what God has shown me and told me. Every citizen in heaven fits together like let's just say a puzzle. All right. And no one can replace your placement in that puzzle, your puzzle piece. Only you can fill that space, right? As each citizen in heaven comes in, if you're dwelling in heaven, you automatically fit in, right? It's in heaven, it's so easy to find your place, your space in the puzzle that only you can fill. And so what that means is, here are some of the things that define your citizenship in heaven. The first thing you showed me is your gender, male or female. That is the first criteria to understanding how you fit in, how you are a citizen of heaven, your special place in that entire family, in that puzzle. I'm going to think of it as a family. Is the better way to think of it, as a puzzle rather than a puzzle. But the first criteria is gender. Are you male or female? There is no one better than the other in heaven, but they were both created together to be the wholeness of God. And there's a special unique qualities that women bring and special unique qualities that men bring that the other can't bring. And so that's the first criteria, is understanding who you are. Your gender is. Now, think of it. What is one of the main ways that Satan is battling citizenship on earth right now? That's gender dysphoria, gender confusion. And now that I think there's something like, I don't know, probably 365 genders according to that agenda right now. So Satan is attacking that in major ways right now, and that dismantles our citizenship in heaven. So that's the number one way. The second way that defines us is who we are as in family, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, grandmothers, grandfathers, cousins, is an understanding of all the different family roles. That's the next part. Is now, if you're a female, you can be a mother, you can be a grandmother, you can be an aunt, you can be a cousin, you can be a sister, right? And there's all those different roles. It's understanding all of those roles. And the same thing for men, being a father, a grandfather, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, right? It's understanding those roles. So that's a second criteria. To defining who you are. And then another one is spiritual gifts, right? So spiritual gifts, obviously we know are, there's apostles, prophets, teachers, pastors, and evangelists. Then there's administrators, there's craftsmen, and then getting into more detail, there's worship people, there are dance people, there are artists, there are carpenters, there are painters, there are jewelry makers, there are, oh goodness, then there's architects, then there's let's go into teachers. There's science, understanding the science of God. There's, oh my goodness, there's all those gifts. There's the gifts of healing, the gifts of giving, the gifts, all those gifts, right, are important to understand, because we each have a unique gift blend that only we feel. It's like our fingerprint, right? Just like our fingerprint, no fingerprint in history exists like our fingerprints. It's the same thing. The next thing is understanding our passions. What is our passion, right? So is our passion gardening? So you can be in the art sector, but your passion is gardening, creating beautiful landscapes with flowers and shrubs and trees, right? It could be oh goodness, your passion could be like mine would be, and most people in has said, is the most vulnerable children of the world. So that's not just any child, it's the most vulnerable children. Some others might be caring for seniors. Other passions might be for men or for women, or, it's understanding your passion as yet another dimension to who we are, our identity, which gives us our purpose, and makes us a citizen, a special, unique citizen in heaven that only we can fill. Now, in heaven, we get to discover that because God wants us to understand our purpose, worth, and identity. And so when we go there, he shows us, he imparts it into us, and our spirit comes alive in that purpose, worth, and identity as a citizen of heaven, right? Then the more we do that, right, the more we discover our purpose, worth, and identity, the more we live it out on earth. The next key thing is now we live it out on earth. And this is where things really start to take off. As people understand what they're supposed to do. What is my next step? Should I be serving, where should I be living? What part of the world should I be living? What neighborhood should I be living in to fulfill my citizenship? So it's replicating heaven's citizenship on earth, which is another way, like I said, of bringing heaven to earth, and building God's kingdom, because we're all called to build God's kingdom in some way. Right? Some of us are craftsmen and woodworkers. Some of us are jewelers. Some of us are artists. Some of us are gardeners and landscapers. And some are architects. That would be my role as an architect. And then we bring heaven to earth. We literally build God's kingdom on earth. And of course, with Hesed, going down further, down, once we learn to live from heaven, right? And as we just a bit of understand the times we are in, the 7 mountains prophecy, understanding the times we are in, how the enemy is moving, and then the solution, God's 14 mountain blueprints, right? Then we understand how to have a heart for the people of the world and uniting the nations. Then we can build, right? Then we can build. But again, it starts here. I've said this a few times now. So let's talk about the blessing that flows. I'm going to talk about it from a biblical perspective. I'm going to talk prophetically first. Oh my goodness, I think it was about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. I was in a worship service and God gave me a vision of, I saw a bicycle chain going up from the top to the bottom, and it kept running it kept moving top to bottom, this bicycle chain. I said, God, what am I looking at? Like, what am I seeing? And he said, what do those the links in the bicycle chain look like? And they, of course, they're kind of round, they come in together and then around at the bottom, and they're linked together by a rivet. A bicycle chain is almost impossible to break, right? And I said, well, it kind of looks like a bone, right? It kind of shaped like a bone. And he said, right. And then I saw, so here's the chain coming down, and then I saw a bunch of bones lined up in a row like this, a whole bunch of bones, but they were disconnected, and they weren't joined together. And I said, what am I looking at now, God? And then I didn't hear him. So I will like, well, what does the Bible say about bones? And then, of course, in Ezekiel 37, the valley of the dry bones. So I started reading that. And of course, in the valley of the dry bones, all the bones were disconnected. They were laying there in the valley, all these dead bones, all dried up and dead. And they were all, of course, separated. And then Ezekiel was called to speak to those dry bones to come to life, to join together, to come to life. And the bones started coming together and being joined by ligaments and tendons and muscles, started joining them together, and they came to life. And then as he kept saying them, come to life, come to join together, and breathing the breath of life into them, it formed an army. So not just one body came together, but another body and another body, and they formed a large body of people, an army, it says. And what I saw was these disjointed bones. When God said each bone represents one generation. And when each of generation is separated from the one before, separated by sin, the blessing can't come, right? Nothing moved. Those bones were suspended there. They weren't moving. But then the bicycle chain, where those what looked like bones were joined together by rivets so strong, and everybody knows a bicycle chain. There's you might have to attach it to this machine to pull them apart. I don't even know if that could pull them apart, but they're so connected, they're so strong. And so basically what it means is coming into order, the bones coming in together, understanding our citizenship in the family of heaven, right? And joining those bones, coming into covenant relationship with our family in heaven. Then we're joined together so strongly. Then over here, I saw this line of gold coins just pouring down, not like a faucet or a tap, and gold coins were pouring down. And so basically what it's saying is, as we come into order, as we come into citizenship, we take our place as citizens in heaven and we join together, the blessing comes. And then it took me to the blessing of Abraham, right? The father of nations. When we joined in, when we link in, when we covenant in to our heavenly family, then the blessing comes. And I want to tell you here's my testimony, which did I share this last? No, I haven't shared it yet. And has said, I don't believe. My daughter has been very angry at God and hasn't talked to me for the last 2 years, because she's angry at everything to do with God. And of course, that includes me. And of course, it's very complex, but I'm speaking very simplified right now. And I have never met my 18-month-old granddaughter. I've been not allowed to be in her life. And as I have been going and dwelling more and more and more from heaven and had this revelation And as I've received my specific fingerprint, my unique purpose, worth, and identity on earth, the blessing is coming to me. And I want to tell you, as soon as I obeyed God and started running the masterclass for Encounter Heaven, within weeks, my daughter just called me last week and asked if she could come home, and said, my granddaughter, she said she needs you. She needs her grandmother in her life. And not only that, but acknowledged her part in our relationship breakdown. And I'm not going to go any more detail than that, because I don't want to betray her, confidence and confidentiality. But all that to say, it was a jackpot of answered prayers. And it's because I'm stepping more and more into my purpose, worth, and identity, my citizenship in heaven. I'm doing it, right? I'm executing it here on earth. And so that's just my testimony. The other people in the Encounter Heaven Masterclass, and I won't betray any of those confidential information there. I can't even begin to tell you the blessing that is coming to these people taking this masterclass. It is the revelation they're getting about direction of what to do next. Repair of relationships is happening. And I want to give the testimony, but not betray confidentiality. The peace, the level of joy, the optimism that's come, the healing that's coming is unbelievable. Sadness, frustration is being replaced with peace and joy and love. And not only that, we have become so connected, like that bicycle chain. We've become so, we literally love one another. And so, and there's vision about next steps together. So knit together, just like King David's mighty men, right? They risked their lives for one another and for the mission God had them on, right? So there was one part where King David said, "I'm really thirsty," and two of his men crossed enemy lines to go get water, crossed the enemy lines to come back, and then King David said, "Oh my goodness, how dare I drink the water that you risked your lives for? You should be drinking it." So the edification of one another, the devotion for the well-being of one another was really, they risked their lives for one another. It's like that when you go to heaven together. I wish I could explain the feeling that you get and how it brings you together with people, your family. Right? Because as we go together to heaven, we discover our citizenship together. We're all knitted together in heaven. We're all like those puzzle pieces, or like the bicycle chain. We're all called to mission together, to co-mission together. And so, and love prevails. We get so filled with the love of God that we just love each other. We look at each other, we just love each other, and we can't stop saying it. That's blessing in itself, having people that are highly devoted to doing the mission, right? The mission of Hesed International. And let me just look through my notes here, make sure I caught everything I wanted to say. I see today all kinds of division. I see division in the church. There's the Baptist church and the Catholic church and the what other denominations are Wesleyan, Anglican, all these different denominations There's none of that in heaven. There's none of that in heaven. All that does is divide the body. Oh, we believe this and we believe that and we believe the other, and we believe them. I'm like, nope, in heaven, there's only one truth. There is only one truth. And so, you know, I just see even in the church working so hard to bring heaven to earth, but they're doing it from an earthly perspective, from earth dwellers. We need to go to heaven and dwell from heaven. I see even our own experiences within the masterclass that, you know, and it's only the first masterclass, definitely running multiples. Every month there will be a new masterclass. So we'll be doing another one starting before the end of March. Probably the 3rd or 4th week in March, we'll be starting the next one. And where was I going to go with that? All I can say is it's the answer to everything. It's just the answer to everything. I don't know how else to say it. Everything we've been praying for and wanting is all wrapped up in going to heaven and going together. That's the key. It's good. Like I spend a lot of time going to heaven on my own. That's important. You know, but going together is so important as well. Let's see here. Oh, and the overlay of our heavenly family and our birth families. Even so, as I'm finding covenant in my heavenly family, it's causing shift in my earthly family, right? Reuniting with my daughter. And I want to say the conversations I'm having with my son now, my son and I have a good relationship, but now our conversations are going to much, much deeper levels. Again, I don't want to betray any confidential things with him, but much deeper levels of understanding, even where, you know, he's been saying, Mom, I was always angry about you towards you for this particular situation, you know, when you said no to me for this particular thing. And I held anger and resentment for you for a long time. And then I was able to explain to him why I said no. And then he was like, oh, I understand. Of course you said no. That makes so much sense. You know, and there's forgiveness is happening. Again, as I dwell with my heavenly family, it's influencing and impacting and bringing blessing to my earthly family. Everything's coming back into order on earth as I come into order in heaven. All right. So think of it this way, as those bones come together, right? Let's see. Let's say this is an arm. I'll just use this pen. Let's say this is an arm, right? And you know, and it's detached from the body, right? So detached from the body, right? The fingers can't move, right? Because the movement starts with the brain telling the nervous center to move your fingers, right? Well, if it's not attached to the brain and the nervous system, then it can't move its fingers, right? And this arm, it can't lift things, right? Because how does it lift anything? It's just laying there, right? It's useless on its own, right? So working on our own individually, we're useless unless we're attached into family, the body, right? You know, it says in Corinthians, you know, we're all a part of a body, right? So this arm is useless on its own. But when we join in, when we look, if this is my shoulder here, and joint in to the rest of the body, now all of a sudden blood flows to this arm. Here, I'll just use my arm. Blood flows to my arm, right? Now it's attached to my brain and nervous center. I can move it any way I want, right? You know, I can lift things, I can touch things, I can feed myself, right? Because it's jointed in, right? So where it was once powerless on its own, now it's jointed in. Now it has blood flow Think of the blood of Jesus, right? Life comes to this arm through that blood. Oxygen comes through the blood, right? And it just comes alive, and then it becomes fully functional. Now, think of the body, right? Without this arm, I've got one other arm, one other hand, right? And so I'm much limited. My body is handicapped from being fully functional, right? It's a strain on the rest of the body. So the analogy, when we detach ourselves and we work independently, right, or try to, which we can't, it's not possible. Not only are we robbing ourselves of being fully functional, but we're robbing the entire rest of the body by refusing to come into order, by refusing to join in, by being, I'm just going to say, rebellious, stubborn, independent. I'm going to just be straightforward, right? By not submitting to the body, we ourselves are useless and the body becomes handicapped. So all that to say, that's a perfect illustration from Corinthians, a perfect illustration of the importance of jointing in, going to heaven, learning our citizenship. How are we a citizen there? What is our special, unique purpose, worth, and identity that no other citizen can fill of that family? And then living it out here on earth, right? Yeah. That's so with Hesed International, we are moving towards now. It's the starting point with Hesed International. The starting point for everyone is the Encounter Heaven Masterclass. It's a must, because otherwise we can't function. We cannot move forward in this movement. And Hesed International is a movement, right? Which means it moves the kingdom forward. And our special assignment that we have, that God has given us, is to build Hesed kingdoms, or miniature King Solomon kingdom incubators. And so to do that, each citizen as a part of the body, as a part of the family, we all must learn to dwell from heaven. We all must go to heaven. Therefore, the Encounter Heaven Masterclass is like the grade 1. Everyone has to go through grade 1 to get to grade 2. And of course, we all have a ton of training now for how to build the foundations of a Hesed kingdom. But now we've got to go back to grade 1 and get that piece of how to live from heaven, how to go to heaven on our own and go to heaven together and be jointed together. So that's our message for today. And there'll be more information. That next masterclass I will run, like I said, it will start either probably the last week of March. Might be the 3rd or 4th week of March. I will be starting that up again. And we will do a second class for that. So I'm going to stop the recording, and then we'll take discussions, questions, and the like. So